Well, hello and welcome back to the Pat Podcast, episode 14. Today, I'll be tackling the greatest topic of them all, motivation. Yes, it's the same topic everybody talks about nowadays on YouTube. Why to do things, why you shouldn't do things, and I've gone over some of this stuff before, but I thought I would dive a little bit deeper into the details, why I have the motivation to do what I do, and what pitfalls I feel people fall into. Motivation, I feel, is derived from something very important, something even more important than motivation, but dangerous. And that is inspiration. Everybody seeks inspiration. Everybody wants to find inspiration. You always hear people saying that, I want to be inspired. And why do they want to be inspired? It's because the inspiration is what breeds the motivation. But the motivation is not a sustainable thing. I was watching this one vlog series by Bernie Burns. It says it perfectly. He says it perfectly, is that discipline is more reliable than motivation. And I can't agree with that more. I mean, it makes sense because motivation is almost the marriage of your willingness to do an idea and the inspiration that you found. So for instance, let's say you found an amazing runner and you want to be just like that runner. So you get the idea, I'm going to start running that much every single day until I'm as well equipped to run as that person. So the idea came, you were inspired, and you said, I'm going to do this. But then, like most people, including myself, you tend to realize that that may have been a little bit hasty, that may have been a little bit much. You had a lot going on in your life. You feel like you're not going to have the chance to get excuses after excuses after excuses, which is understandable. And that motivation dies and the inspiration goes along with it. The inspiration leaves and goes and finds somebody else. And you no longer are doing the thing that you were inspired to do. So many people, including myself, agree with the concept that no, discipline is more important than motivation. But that also can be discouraging because when people hear discipline, they immediately feel like they've lost sight of the inspiration. I guess you could say discipline is almost like the marriage counselor, right? You don't want to have to go to counseling to keep it together. You want to be able to have you want it to be perfect all the time, but that's not always realistic. Because when reality strikes, it's harder to maintain that excitement level. And yeah, sometimes you get that back once in a while, but you have to be able to work for it. But the discipline is scary because, especially as a creative mind, discipline implies the thing that you were trying to escape, the thing you're trying to leave behind in your endeavor to be creative. And I think it's very interesting to see that there's many people who don't realize how important discipline is in that process. My argument is that discipline is not as frightening a concept to the creative mind as people might think it might be, as the other creative minds might think it might be. Because, motivation by itself, derivative from the word motive. So they're at a crime scene, there's police at a crime scene, that something bad happened, and they want to figure out the motive. Why did he do it? What was the purpose behind this? Right? It's no different than the normal things that we do every day. Why do we go to work every day? Because you want to make money so that you can purchase food so that you can feed your family. That was your motive. That was your motivation. But we don't give that credit because it's something that we're so used to doing. Why do we brush our teeth? So that our breath doesn't smell like coffee all day. Why do we take showers? Why do we exercise? Some of us, exercise is nothing. To me, it's like, I gotta do it. But it's because I'm not motivated to do it, which means I'm building, and I'll get to that explanation later. But a lot of times we're scared of the word discipline. But really, discipline is a bunch of habits built up into one singular thing. They're habits. That's all it really is. Once you create a habit with the right, you're following the same habit over and over and over and over and over. Before you know it, it's become habit, and that can be considered discipline. It's really important to try to put this into to perspective of what it is I'm trying to say here, because motivation is not reliable, but habits are super easy to build, and those habits will eventually turn into discipline. So how do you develop these habits? What are my ways of developing habits that allow me to, say, do this podcast every couple of months, every couple of weeks, and continue to do it despite maybe not seeing as well received reciprocation in terms of subscribers and viewers as I would like? Well, what I choose to do is look at it through a different perspective entirely. I don't look at it through the desire to get viewers or subscribers or anything like that, which I am very grateful for, by the way. But I choose to look at it since day one as a therapeutic, almost venting release session for myself to have an opportunity to express things that I want to say or do. Because creativeness at its very root is just trying to find an audience that will appreciate or understand or maybe take something away from what you're saying, with the desire not to have to receive outward validation, just simply an inward desire to have to get this stuff out, get this information out into the world. There was a podcast that I had recorded when it actually had Mr. Jonathan Chase from the Jackass Express podcast joining me, and unfortunately my OBS crapped the bed and I lost it, and I'm hopefully not going to tell him. Maybe you shouldn't tell him either, and I doubt he'll listen to this, but we'll see. Hopefully he will. But if he is listening, I'm very sorry, Mr. Chase. I don't know what happened. I blame it on OBS. He was making the argument of these ultra marathon runners who they run for so many kilometers a week and they don't stop. And they don't do you think they wake up every single day thinking, I really am looking forward to this run? No, sometimes I bet they wake up, their bones are creaking, their muscles hurt, and they know that once they get into that run, everything will be okay. But leading up to that run, that starting point, I'm sure they're dreading it, like, here we go. And that is because they created a habit, because despite their inward feelings about it, despite their emotional feeling about it, they're going to do it. It's just something that's a part of their schedule, and they do it, and they get it over with, or they enjoy it. Some people enjoy running. I call those crazy people. No, but seriously, I think there are people that actually enjoy that stuff, and those of us that wish that we could do that stuff, they have to create the habit of doing it, and eventually they grow to maybe loving to do something like that. In my case, it's content creation and all this stuff. But I feel where many people fall short, and a part of that discussion we were having, is so many people seek outward validation for their action. In other words, the motivation is lost if there's not an outward validation of that action. So let's say I'm motivated to be a baseball player, right? You see a really cool baseball player on television. You're thinking, I could do that. So you go out, you buy the bat. You're motivated. You buy the ball. You buy the cap. Maybe it's your favorite team currently. Maybe it's the cap of the person that you want it to be like. So you want to, because you want to encapsulate that inspiration so you don't lose it. And you're doing that. And then you're practicing, and you're not getting any better. You're not hitting the ball as well. The swing is off. Your stance is terrible. People keep telling you you're doing things wrong. You keep going, but then after a while, that honeymoon period ends. And then in order to continue to do what you were doing to begin with, you start almost craving external validation. And I feel like that's the biggest pitfall of any endeavor. Because now what used to be a commitment, a decision to create a habit, now has become something that is dependent on other people's compliments, praise, so forth, validation. And you give up. People will give it up because they no longer wish to do something that they're not getting any type of reciprocation for. I mean, it's true in life in a lot of ways. You know, you will help your friend maybe, let's say, move, right? He's going to move from one apartment to the other, and you're dreading it because you know it's a whole hassle. But usually what makes it all worth it, at the end of it, the guy takes you out for a beer, or you just sit and talk and he's like, man, thank you. I really had to get this done. I appreciate you stepping up and being there. That makes it worth it, because then there's that validation, and yeah, you seek that. And if it's a lot better than if you go and you do all that stuff and then they're like, all right, get out. I mean, yeah, okay, I get that part. But I'm talking about long-term things, you know? How do you continue to do something without the external validation? And I feel that that is what the definition of commitment is. The decision to continue with those habits, with that discipline, despite no external force or any external force affecting you. And that includes inspiration and motivation. Because now you're not dependent on inspiration. Sometimes you'll watch somebody online, or you'll see something like, again, on the baseball field, and it'll give you that charge to keep going, but you can't always depend on that. It's not realistic. It really is not realistic. And especially now, if you consider the age of social media where everybody's critical of everybody else, it's easier to lose motivation simply because you feel that other people are going to criticize you for the thing that you're doing. When in fact, I actually have the opposite opinion. I feel like if you've gotten to a point where people are criticizing you, you're doing something right, because now people care enough to make a point of what it is you're doing wrong, or what it is you're doing that they don't agree with. And I think that's awesome. I think that's an awesome place to be, because then it gives you a starting point to say, hey, now I've got people's attention. What do I truly believe to do? And then you can move on. But that's an entirely different discussion entirely. So how do I approach the idea of being motivated despite not having external validation? Because it is kind of ridiculous, if you think about it, to continue something indefinitely if you don't get a return. Why do we do anything? Return on investment, right? ROI. We want to have something to show for the work that we put into it. With running, it's either the love of running, health benefits, losing weight. Baseball, you are really good at something that you love, and you want to be able to share that with other people, and by byproduct you get, hopefully money and validation and all that. Hopefully, but as a byproduct, not the thing you're seeking, but as a byproduct of it. Well, I believe that there's a quote that was said something like, success is measured. And I forget who said it. I really should have looked that up before I even mentioned it, but it was something to the effect of, success is measured. So you can't really decide you're successful because you just kept beating your head against the wall every single day, and then all of a sudden you get to a point and you're like, well, no one's watching me, no one's listening, no one's doing anything. No, instead what you should be doing is saying, okay, I'm going to do what I love to do for 1 month. Anybody can do anything for 1 month. And then at the end of that month, you look at it and say, okay, well, like in the case of YouTube, how many people saw this? How many people downloaded this? How many people even knew that I was there? See, and in that discovery of how successful you were, you can make a decision, but you can make an educated decision, such as, oh, you know what? I was expecting these people to be able to see this, but they didn't because of X. I didn't post it here. I forgot to post it here. Or, hey, I didn't keep it within the same topic. I kept deviating from this topic, so maybe that's where I lost people. And that's why YouTube analytics is pretty cool. You get to see that sort of information. And then based off of your progress, you can decide, do I want to try again? Or do I want to not do this next month? Or do I need to try something brand new? So in essence, what you're looking for is the remaining sum of your efforts. What is the remaining sum of your efforts? You have all the pieces of the puzzle. You have your effort into it. You have your study into it. You have the habits that you created that have turned into the discipline that you need. Now you can look at the end result, and now you make the decision based off of actual facts, as opposed to whether or not you feel inspired, motivated, or you have external validation. Though that is the most important way to be successful, I believe. Because if your desire to do or do something else comes from a feeling, you are the worst type of species. We are the worst type of species to make any type of decision based off an emotional response. Sometimes we are look at the way marketing is done today. They compel you to do things after generating a feeling from you. That's not to say that we're not emotional creatures and we shouldn't celebrate that, but it shouldn't be the reason you choose to do something or not to do something all the time. I mean, there are those Sarah McLachlan commercials with the animals in the cages, and you see all the sad dogs and the cats, and then something inside is like, I gotta go adopt a cat, man. Oh, I gotta go adopt a dog. Oh, I'm a monster. Look at them. They're in that cage for only a penny a week. I can save Mr. Twinkles. I mean, it moves people to the point of action. And that's what you call effective marketing. I don't care what your stance on the poor little doggies and cats are. That's effective marketing because it's generating a response out of you based off an emotion they want you to have. And that is something that when you allow yourself to be affected by, when you're trying to create something that's supposed to be sustainable, is going to fall apart. It has to be based off of the decision where you're in essence inspiring yourself, motivating yourself instead of seeking that external source of energy, of validation or anything like that. I'm not against praising people. I think you should totally be appreciative of everything that happens. I mean, every single thing that you do, whether or not you have a job, whether or not you have a house, every single day you should be grateful for those things. And at the same time, understand that you have to maintain your level of appreciation in order to keep all of your life into perspective, including whatever business endeavors you do or whatever sports endeavors you do or whatever that you see as worth your time and effort. Those are the things that you have to truly measure by facts and measure by statistics. And then here's the other thing. Let's say you go and you analyze everything. You realize you're making no progress whatsoever. You're not losing any weight. You're not whatever. And you're just like, it's not working. I have to try something else. This is not working out whatsoever. Then at that point, your decision to stop doing the thing that you're doing that is not yielding any type of progress is actually called wisdom. And that wisdom yields is yielded from experience because now you've made a choice based off of your facts and experience. Let's say that you decided to go into construction business with a friend, which I've always heard it's a terrible idea to go to construction business with a friend, and you want to build a house, right? So you show up every day, 9 o'clock or 7 o'clock in the morning or whatever time you decide to, and you have responsibilities. Okay, we need to lay out the foundation. We need to start putting together the brick. We need to start building the walls and the insulation, all that stuff. And every day for 8 hours a day, sometimes even 16 hours a day, you're busting your butt, and then you look over and you see the person that's working with you, and they're just kind of they're not doing it. They say they want to, and then they have those little spurts of energy and this and whatever. They fall into the first category where they feel like it, they don't feel like it, I'm busy. Then you can make a decision then, is this someone that I want to work with? I mean, I still want to maintain the relationship that I have with this person, but do they really actually want to do this? And it's not their fault. I mean, maybe they really don't want to do it, and they just thought it would be fun, and they're discovering that for themselves. And everybody's entitled to that initial moment. But you then have a responsibility to look at that and say, hey, you know what? He said he was going to give it a better try. Or, hey, you know what? They said that they were going to work harder at this, and they kind of didn't. But I understand life's, life. So let's measure it instead. Let's measure from, let's say 1 month from now, I'm going to kind of keep a catalog of what it is, how they handle this responsibility. So then you keep going, and then one day they don't show up. The other day they do show up, and they work really, really super hard, and you're impressed, and it's awesome. And then the next day, not so much. And then the next day, not so much. And then the next day, they don't show up because they thought they worked hard the day before, but they really didn't. And they're going and they're going. And then at the end of the month, you turn and you have your little list of things, and you think about the statistics of it, and you say, you know what? When this person feels like it, they work hard. When this person has that external motivation to do something, they work hard. But on the days where you don't have motivation, which can pretty much be every single day, they really don't put a whole lot of effort into it. And they come up with excuses, and they make up excuses to convince themselves that they don't want to do it. And that's fine, because then at that point, you now have the information to say, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to work with this person anymore, because I understand now that even though they like the idea, they're incapable, not incapable, they don't have enough of what they need to continue to do this project. So you can then pull away from that and say, you know what, buddy? I want you to be happy. I think you're a great person. I want you to have a great life. And I feel like what you're doing here is detriment to what your goals are. No, but I didn't think that. I just, I understand that, but I've made the decision now. Well, I think that's a dumb decision because it's not that big a deal and this and whatever. But you have the facts. They have emotion, they have feelings, they have their thoughts, but you have the facts saying you weren't here, you didn't do it, or you didn't work as hard at building this house that I did. So then when you decide to quit, it has nothing to do with a feeling, it has to do with statistics. And that's where a lot of the best decisions can be made. That's why employers fire people, is because they measure how hard a person has worked over the course of so much time. And then based off of their investment that they got back from, based on what they got from their investment, the return on their investment, they can make a decision. And it's important to understand that these people want to be able to succeed in life, and they will be successful. I'm not saying they won't, but they won't be successful doing what it is you're asking them to do. So that's when an employer decides, you know what, you're better suited somewhere else. You're better suited working in a entertainment industry maybe that actually provides consistent motivation, like YouTube, where there's constantly things everywhere just super happy for you. And I hope that wasn't kind of like a demotivator. I'm trying to influence you and get you energized. No, my objective here is strictly to tell you how I perceive motivation, how I pull motivation, and how maybe most people here can think of motivation as opposed to just something that's an external force that acts upon them. It's much bigger than, oh, do I feel the need to want to do that? No, motivation is something that you have to create yourself. I had a very interesting day yesterday, and motivation is definitely one of the words that I would not use to describe it. I was asked to, I have to make sure I keep my voice down. I was asked to go to a party. It was for a business associate, and they are part of the same culture that I'm at, where it's acceptable to pressure people into participating into the party, which I've never been a fan of. I feel like I love the idea of you go to a party, they have karaoke, they have beer, and you relax and you're fine, and it's not that big a deal. But then the social pressure of participation becomes a little bit too much when they decide that, oh, there's not enough people who want to participate, so you have to come and participate. And they come up to you and they're like, come on, get up, man. And you're there with the other people that obviously they're not going to say no to, and then you feel bad for them, and then there's the thing in your mind that I didn't even want to be here, so now you're at a place that you didn't even want to be, doing things you didn't want to do. You like the people, you like working with the people, but you didn't want to have to do the thing. There's a whole other story that I could tell you about where my family has done that to people on occasion, but in this case, it was being done to me, so I'm not entirely a stranger to it, but at the same time, my family understands when I say no. And I was not motivated to get up and to do this, but I did it because I felt like it was the right thing to do, and I didn't have enough time to run statistical facts on my decision here. So I did participate, and it was one of those games where you pour beer into a baby bottle, and then whoever can drink the beer the fastest wins a prize. And then it's this big old competition, and the prize ends up being like a little design of cotton ball things that's totally worthless. And there's a trick to it, and nobody ever thinks that they understand the trick to it, but there's a trick to it. What you do is that with the baby bottle is pressurized, right? So that's why it's hard to get liquid out of it. And that's why it's perfect for a baby, because then they don't end up, filling their lungs, or they don't end up consuming it too quickly. They only get a little tiny sip at a time, which is perfect for a baby. What you're supposed to do is unscrew the bottle a little bit, let some air in there, then close it, and now you've created pressure behind the liquid, and it's going to come out like a fire hose. I hope you like my little sound effect there, audio listeners, but I'm making the motion of squeezing the bottle, and it comes out like a stream. And then what's so funny is that that's what they're doing, and then they act like, I was like, and then everybody else who's doing it the right way is still going for like half an hour, but this person's done within 10 seconds. And I was like, are you kidding me? You really think nobody knew that you were doing that? And instead, it's more like, it's not worth having to argue with this person who thinks that they outsmarted everybody. Anyway. So I got forced to participate in this thing, and it blew my mind. And then, of course, there's a situation where I'm with my son, and I'm in a play area, and we're playing foosball. Or rather, there's other people playing foosball. And I decided, I don't care to be in these areas. I feel bad for my son. He's walking around. He wants to play things. So, Dad wants to come over and help him out, and we're playing things. But then other kids will run up to the other side of the foosball table, and they'll start wanting to play. And the way foosball works is it's this game where they have these metal rods inside of this kind of like open sandbox thing, and you push it through back and forth. But the other side of the metal rods is not covered. Now, I understand at one point there was another little child that came up, and he pushed the metal rod, and it hit my son in the cheek, right? But it had the padded end, and he looked at it kind of like stunned, but he was fine, And I don't blame the little boy. I will leave it at that. And but then later there was an adult, adult who came, and he decided he wanted to just kind of mess around and play, but an adult, and he pushes one of the rods, and I literally had to stop the metal part of the pole from hitting my son square in the forehead. An adult, mindless to their own effects on the rest of the world. I mean, you have a 3-year-old who's just messing around playing. We were obviously playing with it controlled, and I was just playing with him like, look, here's the ball. Look, I mean, he's barely understanding it, but he's enjoying it. And now, thank God, I saw that thing, because if not, that easily could have been a fracture to his skull. I mean, he pushed hard. And then I look at this guy, and he's like, oh, sorry. If you're sensing frustration from me, now I'm going on to a topic that's more a Jackass Express podcast topic, which I should not be bringing into a Pat podcast. But just as a small little rant, I think I'm going to do it anyway. The effects of ignorant people. The effects of ignorant people are so frightening to me. Frightening. I don't say annoying. I say frightening, because ignorant people are the worst types of people in the world, because they will just... No. They don't justify. And I don't blame ignorant people, because here's the thing. Ignorant people don't know they're ignorant. Therefore, to them, they're just moseying on through life. They have no idea their effect on other people, but they do the most damage. They're the people who drink and drive, and they end up killing an entire family by themselves. That seems a little bit extreme, but it's the truth. They, in their own little world, had no idea of the effect that they had on anybody else. They were just concerned about what they did. So they will do that stuff, and they'll kill people, and then once they're done, they're like, oh... It's like, you could have prevented this, but you were too selfish of yourself to think of that. That's another mental lapse that most people have. Not all people. Most people. There's the other people that are willfully ignorant. Those are the people that you can actually make an argument that are evil, because they'll do stuff knowing that it's dangerous, but do it anyway, and then they expect some sort of like understanding for why that they did what they did. And I'm not saying people don't deserve mercy for making mistakes, but what about people who are made aware of that mistake and then continue to do it despite knowing that it's not the right thing to do? The willfully ignorant, or as I like to refer to them, the stupid people. There is saving grace for these people. There is forgiveness for these people if they're willing to work at it themselves. But just as it says, you can't help someone who cannot help themselves. In this case, there's somebody who cannot make the choice, they understand that it's destructive, but they still continue to do the things that they do, which is, in the worst case scenario, drinking and driving. Or, sadly, people who abuse drugs. They know it's killing them, but I mean, there's a ignorance is bliss policy that they've adopted in life, and they don't seem to care until it's almost too late, and then by the time that it's almost too late, it's too late. It's really, really sad. But Wow, Patrick, that's quite an extrapolation from just almost playing foosball and your kid almost getting hit. Well, it's the same type of theory. It's the same type of concept. They lose reality with what they're supposed what they're doing, and they continue to act in such a way that is dangerous to other people, dangerous to the people around them, but they're oblivious to it. And those are the most dangerous people, the people who are not aware of that their actions are. But I mean, on some level, I choose to not believe that people like that exist. I choose to believe that anybody, a human being, can accept responsibility can understand the concept of a consequence for an action. You stick your hand into an outlet, you get electrocuted. You understand the cause and effect of how that happens, but the decision to reintroduce the fork to the outlet is, I don't understand that. I don't understand that concept. I don't. I have mercy for those people. I want those people to be better and to stop sticking their fork into the outlet, but my greatest fear is that they don't realize that it's killing them, and that's the worst possible scenario. What a jump from motivation, am I right? I really do appreciate you guys watching this. Consider subscribing to the Jackass Express channel as we continue to grow our brand into the world. Maybe we'll inspire you to not be inspired. That's what this should be about. Inspired to not be inspired. Make sure that you give us a little thumbs up there. That would be super helpful. And also, if you can, that little bell that's down there, you click it, and then you get a little notification that tells you whenever we've launched new content. Because if you rely on the YouTube algorithm, it's going to tell you about everybody that you didn't subscribe to before it tells you about the people you did subscribe to. But that's effective marketing, folks. That's how it works. No, it doesn't, and it's terrible. Thank you for listening to the Pat Podcast. Make sure you visit our website at jackassexpress.com. It will take you to our blog where we update it frequently. Please go to our Facebook account, our Facebook page, facebook.com/jackassexpress. It has our logo on it. You'll be able to see it. YouTube channel, which if you're watching this, you're probably already here, but if you're watching this in an embedded video, then chances are you need to click on the little YouTube thing that will take you back to our page where you can consider subscribing to it, as I had said earlier. I thank you for watching this, and I wish you well. I will see you next time. Farewell!